This is an excelling.co.uk video tutorial, Pivot Table 1 and Introduction. In this tutorial we're going to introduce you to the pivot table. We're going to ask the question, what is a pivot table and why do we use them? We're going to explain the data constraints to you. We're going to introduce you to the pivot table wizard, and we're going to show you how to manipulate the pivot table. So what is a pivot table? Quite simply, a pivot table is an automatically formatted but customizable table of data which contains headings, totals and subtotals where required. Why do you use a pivot table? You use a pivot table because it's convenient and quick. Pivot tables are able to analyze / summarize large amounts of data at the press of a button. So let's create our first pivot table. We first select one cell in the range of data you wish to pivot. From the menu you select data and then pivot table and pivot chart report. You will now see a new pop-up window which gives us two options. For now we will just select the default values and press next. Okay, now in this new pop-up window we have two options. We can either create a pivot table in a new worksheet, which will create a totally new worksheet and paste the finished pivot table into that sheet, or we can create it in the existing worksheet and we can come and select where we would like to put the pivot table. In this case we're going to use the new worksheet option, and we now go on and press layout. Okay, so here we have our pivot table. You will see to the left we have the pivot table field list, and if we click outside of the pivot table you will notice that it disappears. Click inside the pivot table and the field list reappears. Okay, so what can we now do with the pivot table? The pivot table is easily modifiable. We can move fields from rows to columns and columns to rows quite easily just by clicking on them and dragging them. So we've now changed the layout of the data with the years going down the rows and the products going across. The page field is used as a form of a filter. If we drag or input anything into the page field, it will give us a drop down box that we can select a member of the field as the filter. So if we transfer the country field into the page field, we've now got the little drop down box. If we press that, we can see that we've got both of the countries that are in the population of data. If we select one of these countries, say Portugal, what we now have is the data that just relates to Portugal. We're not constrained by just having one field within the page field. We can also put other fields in there, so we can take up the month field, and now we've got another drop down box that contains all of the months, and we can select one of the months, say March, and now we've got all of the data that relates to March. Round the corner, down the side. Okay, we can also pull down the month into the column field. Just need to so now we have each of the years going across and the months within those years. So if we come across, now what we could decide on is, of the years, we only want to look at one of the years, and in the months we may only wish to view some of the months. And again, we may wish to see both years. So we're given a number of easy ways of changing the data with filters for pages, total pages, or within the data itself we can filter out the data we wish to see. So again, we could just do here just apples, and we've got the data for the first few months of 2009 and 2010. We could just change this around slightly and put the month before the year. So we've now got January 2009 and 2010 both together. We can also, if you can see we've got totals in here, a total of that just totals one row above is not very useful, so we can click on here and hide. And the same with totaling 2 Januaries together, again not very useful. We can hide that to make the report much simpler. You can see now it's a much more logical report. Okay, that just about wraps up today's tutorial. We hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. Please visit www.excelling.co.uk for more Excel video tutorials.